morning. This is the Trent Show. Thanks for watching this morning. I am glad to be back and to have my voice back. Sorry, we've been away for a little while, but it's a great day to be back because we are putting the wrapping up the step-up plan. So we're told. I mean, we'll see what actually happens next. But we were told yesterday. If you followed what happened yesterday, and it went into the night until 11:02 last night in the Oklahoma State House of Representatives, we're told this is the only deal. It's an adhesion contract is what they call it in the law, right? A take it or leave it deal. Nothing else is going to be considered. I mean, it was only the 6th day of the regular legislative session. Starts at the beginning of February, goes through the end of May. And we are just here at the beginning of week 2. But we were told yesterday, this is the only thing. This is the only teacher pay raise plan that the legislature will be allowed to vote on. That's what people were saying yesterday. Nobody believed that to be true. I mean, I think it's fair to say that. I feel like that should be an insulting thing to say, and like it's not, because I don't think anybody actually believes that, do they? Right? I mean, if people actually believe that anybody actually meant that, that would be sort of a insulting thing to say. But I really, honestly, I mean, I think this is one of the problems in the debate yesterday. If you followed the debate on the House floor, if you followed the things that were said on social media and in press conferences, everybody was trying to say, this is the only thing that legislators were going to be allowed to vote on that would be a plan to give teachers a pay raise. And I don't think that anybody took that seriously. And it is a challenge with Governor Fallon's. I mean, it was not a credibility booster, and it was also a reflection of the fact that credibility was also low. But let's get to the facts. Let's run through some of the facts here this morning. So yesterday they closed the vote at 11:02. 63 votes in favor to 35 votes against, of course, for a tax increase measure. What do you need? If you're a regular, watcher or listener to the Trent England Show, you could probably say this along with me. What's the requirement to increase taxes in Oklahoma? The requirement is a simple majority in the House of Representatives, a simple majority in the state Senate, and a simple majority vote of the public. That's what the state constitution says, unless there's a caveat there, of course, unless you get 3/4 in the House and 3/4 in the Senate, and then you don't have to send it to a vote of the people, a vote of the public. That's what the state constitution says. So it either takes 1, 2, 3 simple majorities. Don't let anybody tell you the only way you can raise taxes in Oklahoma is with a supermajority. Those people are ignorant. They don't know what they're talking about. The primary way to raise taxes in Oklahoma is with 3 simple majorities, simple majority in the House, Senate, and a vote of the people. Or if the legislature passes a measure with 3/4 supermajorities in both chambers, you don't have to send it to a vote of the people. They don't want to send this to a vote of the people, because I think what they're worried about, I think they think that the people want it so bad. The people want their taxes increased so bad that if they sent it to a vote of the people, people would just be overwhelmed. There would be so much joy, people wouldn't know what to do. The opportunity to vote a tax increase on ourselves, to vote to raise income taxes, to make the income tax code more complicated. I think, to raise cigarette taxes by an amount that's so high that it would basically be a stimulus to organized crime and Indian tribes. I mean, I think people, the theory of the politicians apparently is that people would be so overjoyed they just wouldn't know what to do. Oklahoma would sort of grind to a halt because people are so desperate for a tax increase. No, that's, you know what? Maybe it's not that. Maybe it's that they think that if they actually sent this to the ballot, it would go down in flames. Like David Boren's big tax increase plan. We all remember that, right? We all remember David Boren was going to increase the sales tax in Oklahoma and send it all to teacher pay, except the big portion of it that was going to go to higher ed and bureaucracy. But he was going to, I mean, this was an obvious thing. It was obviously going to pass. All the insiders, even the insiders who were against it, most of the insiders who were against it wouldn't admit they were against it. They just tried to kind of keep their heads down. But even the insiders who were against it basically conceded the whole issue. And then the voters annihilated it at the polls, right? And so when people say the only way to raise taxes in Oklahoma is with 3/4 supermajorities, what they are recognizing, I want to make this really clear. What they are implicitly recognizing is either they don't know how the Constitution works, but in the case of many of these insiders, that's not true, or what they're saying is we know the voters aren't with us. We know the voters don't back us. We know the voters wouldn't actually pass this, so we're trying to do this on our own. Which, I mean, you know, fair enough. I am Burkean enough to say, I mean, you know, look, that's sort of the Constitution is written that way. If they can get big enough supermajorities, they don't have to send it to a vote of the people. They can pass the bill, and then we can see what's in it, right? I mean, if that's how they want to operate in the state capitol, they have a way to do that. They weren't even close. Actually, the step-up plan received fewer votes than other tax increase plans that have come before the legislature in the last year. I'm going to say that one more time. The step-up plan received fewer votes than other tax increase plans. Not more. It received 53 of 72 Republican votes, which is not 3/4, by the way, and it received 10 of 28 Democrat votes, which is not nearly 3/4, but not even 3/4 among Republicans, who are the ones in charge of the chamber, obviously. So there was another plan that was rolled out yesterday by the Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs. Obviously, that's where I am, that's where I work, and that's what I'm going to tell you about right now, because the idea behind this plan was to roll out something. I mean, Step Up was, for people who actually understand the legislature, Step Up was going nowhere. Because it was basically a rehash of things that the legislature has considered in the past, with some other worse provisions added to it, right? And we talked about this a lot on the radio program last year, about the fact that you do not build a compromise by taking one thing that people don't like and adding, here's another thing that people don't like. Here's something else unpopular, right? I mean, they have literally tried to build compromises like that in the legislature for the last several years. Well, if you don't like this, let's add something else to it that's heinous, and then surely we'll win some votes that way. And it doesn't. Turns out that doesn't work, right? A $1.50 increase in cigarette taxes. I'm going to talk a little more about that in just a minute, but that's already been put up for a vote. Right? 4% gross production tax, already been put up for a vote, right? Those things have been put up for votes before. Monkeying with the income tax, right? That idea has been out there for a while. They cobbled all these things together. It was basically a big retread of things that had already been tried. You know, the thing that initially looked like, and this is very superficial, but the thing that, but a lot of people have a really hard time seeing through things like this. The thing that set the Step Up plan apart in the beginning was that it ostensibly included all of these reform measures. But look, people aren't stupid. When you say, oh, we've got this big plan, here's some tax increases, here's some reforms, you know, people might say, well, okay, you know, I could potentially live with that. I could potentially vote for that. But then when you say, okay, and the reforms, we're going to do those in a few weeks, couple months, you got to vote on the taxes now, people start saying, well, wait a second. I mean, savvy people say that, right? People who actually are sort of on the level with all this, right? They say, well, wait a second. I don't want to do it that way. I mean, think about it this way, right? The reforms were basically, for the most part, conservative type reforms to state government, to make state government more efficient, more effective, to make state government sort of simpler, more straightforward, easier to operate, make it easier to find and flush out and get rid of waste and fraud. I mean, those are conservative reforms, and any conservative legislator worth his or her salt is going to say this: well, why aren't we doing those anyway? Right? I mean, maybe I will vote for your tax increase package in order to get these reforms. But there's a little secret. Supposedly conservatives control the Oklahoma legislature right now. So it's sort of odd that you would be buying people's votes with conservative reforms that you might think would pass it. Could pass in any legislative session, right? Without negotiations. I mean, it's layers on layers of weirdness, and it came to a halt yesterday. Again, I mean, who knows whether they'll try to revive this? They said they wouldn't, but who knows? But let's walk through some of this here. So there was a plan released by Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs, the Step Up plan. I want to compare and contrast these things. The OCPA plan was released to show that you can achieve the objectives that they claim, right? And this was basically what happened to the David Boren big tax hike plan as well, is that, I mean, when people finally figured out, well, wait a second, we could achieve the objective of giving teachers a raise without such a large tax increase, people said, wait a second, I'm being had, right? I don't want to be taken advantage of, right? And people voted no. And the point of the OCPA plan that was released yesterday was to show, look, you could put together a simpler, cleaner, better, more likely to pass plan, more likely to pass for reasons I'll describe in a minute, right? And I mean, and this should be the alternative. I mean, frankly, this should have been where things started with the step-up plan in the beginning, but the step-up plan says this: raise cigarette taxes by $1.50 per pack. Why does it say that? It says that because Governor Mary Fallin has said that that's her objective, and she said it has to be $1.50 a pack. The OCPA alternative that was rolled out said 75 cents a pack. Why now? Is that just because Governor Fallin hates smoking more? No, it's because sensible tax policy says that if you raise taxes beyond a certain point, right, you change behavior, and you don't change behavior by getting fewer people to smoke necessarily. I mean, it may have that effect as well, but you change behavior by sending more people to buy cigarettes at tribal smoke shops and sending more people to buy cigarettes out of state. I had a conversation with somebody, I think just a week or two ago, talking about how, yeah, you know, the people they know who smoke, they put their money together once a month. They send somebody up to Missouri where the cigarette taxes are much lower, and they buy their cigarettes up there, and that's how they do it already, right? You're going to get a lot more of that behavior. 75, when you look at cigarette taxes in the surrounding states, 75 cents is probably a level that still be higher than all of our surrounding states, but probably a level that's not so much higher that you send virtually everybody who buys cigarettes who can shopping in other states or shopping at tribal smoke shops. The OCPA plan also includes something really important, which is a proviso that the governor would negotiate with the Indian tribes so that the revenue stays with the state and doesn't get rebated back to the tribes. I mean, after all, right, think about it this way. The tribes already collect what they collect from the cigarette tax. If you're going to increase it, it's just a windfall if they get to keep half. That's how the tribal compacts work right now. They don't need the windfall. The state needs the money, right? Even the tribes, I think at least some of the tribes have come out in support of this concept, right, of raising taxes to give teachers a pay raise. There's no reason why they wouldn't support, if they're asked to do it, right? There's no reason why they wouldn't support letting that money stay in the state and go to teachers, right? I mean, that makes sense when you think it through. The step-up plan said 4% gross production tax. The OCPA plan said 5% gross production tax. Partly that's a nod to the fact that there are a lot of members of the legislature who said they'll only vote for 5%. And frankly, the people pushing 4% last year were saying that 4% would be the end of the world. Now they're saying that 4% is a patriotic necessity. So, you know, I mean, if they are not interested in quibbling over 2%, hard to understand why they would quibble over 1% more, right? I mean, this is what a lot of members of the legislature have said they want is 5%. So you put 5% in there. Those two things put together raise a lot of revenue for a teacher pay raise. But there are several other, especially when the tribes allow the state to keep the revenue from the cigarette tax increase. You also have TSET reforms that are worth between $55 and $60 million. And you have a cap to the refundability, the payouts for wind tax credits that would save the state about $60 million a year. And you have no monkeying with the state income tax at all. No manipulating it, no tricky, funny business with the state income tax trying to increase revenue without calling it a tax increase, you know, claiming to be simplifying the state income tax while making it far more complicated. That has attracted criticism from both the left and the right. And so, look, the OCPA plan better in that regard as well. The step-up plan, no TSET reform. right? Even though a lot of legislators have recognized that TSIT reform is important. So there you go. Those are the details of the plan, basically showing that you could do what people say they want to do. You could raise the amount of revenue that people say they want to raise through a combination of, yes, tax increases, but simple, straightforward tax increases, not convoluted, complicated, and politicized tax increases, and some reforms that, again, all of these things have support or have shown that they have support in the legislature in the past. And after that plan was released yesterday, there was a flurry, just an incredible flurry of claims that, and this is what I alluded to at the beginning of the show, that no other plan will be considered, no other plan can be considered, that it's take it or leave it, all or nothing, and of course that failed last night at 11:02, and we will see where they go from here. I want to get back to basics, right? Should teachers in Oklahoma be paid more? In general, absolutely. I mean, you just look at market wages, and you look at surrounding states, but also you look at market wages in Oklahoma, and I think any person would say, yeah, the average teacher pay in Oklahoma should be higher than it is. That would be a good thing. Probably true for a lot of public workers as well. Here's the most basic point. The most important point is, if we believe that's true, if the legislators up the street believe that's true, right? The starting point for that, for trying to do that, is looking at the revenue that's already in the system and trying to figure out how to spend it better, recognizing that better means shifting more of it to teachers, shifting more of it to public employees. And in the case of public employees in general, it probably means employing fewer public employees and paying the ones that we have better. That's what businesses do, right? You try to figure out how can we be more efficient, and then how can we reward the people that we have better, right? A couple other points about teacher pay as we wrap up the program here this morning. We'll have a lot more to come this week, by the way. OPEC is in a panic. Preston Dorflinger's in the news. There's all kinds of great things to talk about this week on the Trent England Show, but we're gonna stick with teacher pay and taxes and the legislature this morning, and round it out by making the point, look, one thing the legislature should do is get rid of the minimum salary schedule for teachers. Get rid of it, right? Turn over all of the authority to pay for teacher pay to local school districts. They already have that authority right now within some parameters, but make it absolutely clear. Local school districts set teacher pay, and shift the discussion to both how the state is funding education, but also the priorities set in local school districts. There are school districts in Oklahoma right now that pay teachers better, that pay teachers more than the average, that pay teachers more than the minimum. But a lot of school districts would rather pay teachers the minimum, because then they get to point to the state capitol and say it's their fault. Right? Do you understand how that works, right? If they pay teachers the minimum, they're able to pretend like, well, the legislature sets teacher pay. Because in that case, it is true. If the legislature raises the minimum salary schedule, then they'll have to pay their teachers more, because that's a state law. Right? Now, in those school districts that already pay their teachers more than the minimum, then if the state raises it, right, then or lowers it, there's less of a legitimate claim that the state is controlling teacher pay in those districts. So you understand how that works. The state should get rid of the minimum salary schedule for teachers. The state should make sure that local districts are empowered to pay teachers based on need, based on market demand, based on performance. In other words, to treat teachers as professionals. Professionals are paid for performance, and local districts should figure out how to do that. The state should not tell local districts how to do it, right? And this is something a lot of conservatives, we want performance pay. We want performance pay for teachers. The state should not order districts how to do that. The state might set up a framework. The state might offer districts some assistance if they want to do that. But ultimately, teacher salary decisions should either be made at the local school district level or not. And we shouldn't pretend like they're made at the local school district level, but then monkey with them at the state level and give these, give local district leaders the ability to point to the state and claim that the state has all the power when that's not true, right? One of the things we learn about government from the American founders, from the Federalist Papers, is that it needs to be clear who has the authority. And in this case, I think the authority should be with the local school districts, and the legislature needs to make that more clear. Now, to go along with all of that, right, they need to, ultimately, a lot of that, the funding for teacher pay does come from the state. And so if we're going to give teachers a raise, the state needs to reprioritize how they spend money, reform things like TSET, get rid of things like the Hollywood handout, audit Medicaid rules, do all of the things that the state can do, the low-hanging fruit, the easy things that the state can do to save money and shift that money to teacher pay. This is the obvious stuff. Right, the OCPA plan that was rolled out yesterday was basically to show. I mean, and look, I hope they put it on the board. I hope they put it up for a vote. I am quite sure that it would get far more votes than the Step Up plan got last night. But ultimately, it was put up to. I mean, it shows, right, that there are simpler, better ways to write public policy than what we were told yesterday was the only way to do this, which is a silly claim. We're only in the second week of legislative session. We're only in the second day of the second week of legislative session. I'm told that the parking lot is already full up there. So I'm going to close the Trent England Show for the morning with this. If you are a taxpayer, if you are an Oklahoman who values limited government, if you are a hardworking Oklahoman who thinks that conservative elected officials should behave like conservatives, or people who, get themselves into power by claiming to be conservatives should actually vote like it and stand by those principles, this is your day, this is your week to let your legislators know that, to be in contact with your legislators. It makes a difference. Again, the legislature is packed already with almost entirely tax consumers. I don't say that as an epithet, right? But it is descriptive, right? Tax consumers, people who benefit from you paying more taxes, people who benefit from state government being larger, right? I mean, and they may even be conservative people or liberal. I mean, who knows, right? But their interest is in bigger government. And so if your interest is not in bigger government, or maybe you're out there and you are a state government employee, but you actually you look around and you say, look, we could do this better, we could do this more efficiently, we should not be leaning on taxpayers, right? This is your moment to be in contact with the state legislature, share your thoughts, share your own personal story, and perhaps remind them what they told you when and if they got your vote. That is very powerful. It is very powerful when they hear from people in their own legislative districts, not just activists walking around the halls of the Capitol, but people who are actually from their district who will or will not vote for them this year. Every member of the State House of Representatives is up for re-election this year. So this is your moment. This is our moment for taxpayers to be heard. Thank you for watching the Trent England Show this Tuesday morning. We have a lot more to come. As I mentioned, there's a lot of things in the news that we're going to get to over the next 3 days as we round out this second week of legislative session here on the Trent England Show.